Hey there, Lone Atlas community. I am here today with my friend and fellow faculty member, Tyler Osby. Tyler, good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you, dude.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your busy day. And Tyler and I were just talking about realtor masterminds and how Tyler's using this concept around realtor masterminds to kind of deepen the connection with the realtors that he's already working with and also invite new realtors into his ecosystem, if you will. So, what is a realtor mastermind? How are you doing it? And what are the results, bud?
Yeah, well, so we've always been big fans of trying to add value to agent relationships, right? So I wanted to find a way that I could do a one to many and make it easy to attend. So we did a marketing calendar for the first half of the year and
Right.
picked dates for these master classes. So we committed and we communicated those dates to the agents. And the agents are both agents we actively work with and agents that we've done deals with. So looking back at the last couple of years of transactions, we communicate with them. And then we kind of have like a target list of agents we'd love to work with. And we're inviting that entire group to these monthly, is the frequency we're doing, classes. And, if I'm being really honest, like the truth is I really don't love talking to real estate agents just to kind of like check in and if I'm to count on me to do that, I'm not necessarily going to do it. But if I have an event and I'm going to be doing a class and I have the chance of being embarrassed and nobody showing up, I'm going to work really hard to fill that master class. And it's a Zoom webinar is the way we're doing it. So I have a reason to call them ahead of the class to invite them. I have a reason to communicate with them leading up to the class to remind them of the class and make sure they show up. And then I have a reason to follow up after the class to say, what'd you think if they attended? Or if they didn't attend, make sure everything's okay, right? I thought you might make it. I didn't see you there. What is it? I hope everything's all right. So then I'm showing genuine concern. And then it gives me a chance to share with them kind of the Cliff's notes of what they missed. And if I want to, and it's up to you if you think it's a good idea or not, I can share a recording with them so they can get the same content and hopefully come the next month.
I've got a whole bunch of questions, but before I do, let me just point out a couple of things. I love that you got out the calendar and you pre-scheduled them for the next 6 months. So you're on the hook, right? You have that public accountability, and also they know that it's consistent and they can count on it. The other thing I love that you mentioned was you're using fear as your friend, and that was a concept that I think it was Jesse Itzler and Tim Brahim were talking about. How do you use or leverage the fear of not doing something or not executing to motivate you to do something positive? So I love that you get over your resistance to call agents because you have the fear of throwing a mastermind and nobody being there.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Love that. Okay,
Thank you.
questions. What are you talking about? Are you doing them virtually or in person? And are you shouldering, are you like emceeing the mastermind? Are you doing a keynote presentation? Like, how are you making this easy on yourself?
Yeah. So first off, I'm doing it over Zoom, these classes. And the reason why is I want to make it easy for people to show up. I'm doing them on Monday mornings at 10 a.m. So
Mm,
it's like, if they've got kids they got to go take to school, but they're just kind of Monday, what I find is a slower day for real estate agents. So
okay.
that's why I picked it and the medium I picked to do it in. Topics, I'm trying to find what I'm seeing are common objections from clients that we're interacting with on a daily basis, right? So we're getting a lot of hesitation still over interest rates, so
Mhm.
we're trying to find new solutions to solve for that. I mean, respectfully, the temporary buy down is not new news anymore, right? Like we've been talking about that for a while. So we're trying to find new angles to approach that. We're explaining, how we use the cost of waiting tool with MDS Highway, for example, to show like this is what it's going to cost you if you don't buy sooner than later.
Yep.
And those sorts of things are really, really useful to add value to the agent relationships. Does that answer the questions you had there?
Yeah, the topic is the challenges you're seeing in the market. The format is virtual, and then so you're coming up with these questions, but tell me how, like, what is the collaborative answer to that? Like, what does that format look like?
Yeah. Well, so the way I'm entering it is first off, I thank everybody for coming in and remind them who I am and what I do, right? And then I go into, raise your hand or say in the chat, if you're seeing this objection, like do you have examples of situations that you've run into like that? And depending on how big the room is and maybe the rapport I have with agents, I might get somebody to speak up and share their story, right? So it's not just me talking to them, it's more of a collaborative conversation. And if I can get one person to break silence, it really eases the tension in the whole room. So maybe if you back channel and set that up ahead of the meeting, that's a really good move. But then, it starts an opportunity where I can then do a screen share with some screenshots. I build like a really simple keynote presentation that I show and kind of talk through specifically on the topic that I want to share on that month. And then I leave it open for Q&A, which in mine, there always are. There's a lot of really great questions on, can you tell me a little bit more about how the mechanics of that program work? Or how are you presenting this to clients? That sort of thing. And then at the end, I'm reminding them, what we do and a great way to, refer us. This is a strange tip, but I think it's worthy of sharing with the community. What I'm finding a ton of success with in getting referrals is group text introductions. Before, what would happen is an agent would say, yeah, I shared your name with, Bob and Sally or whatever. And I'd make a note to hear from Bob and Sally, and then I'd follow up with the agent if I didn't hear from them. But I mean, it would take weeks to get these people to take action, and time kills everything, right? So
Yeah.
for me, what I'm encouraging agents to do, and I used an example in the workshop I just did on Monday of, here's a text thread, a group text that I received from an agent. This is what they said. So it showed them like what it looks like so they could just swipe and adapt it. And then they just saw how quickly the conversation moved as opposed to whatever they're probably doing that isn't moving that quickly. And they understand the value of speed and they understand the value of getting their people talking to somebody about financing. So we use that as an opportunity to teach them how to refer us. Because at that point, they're like in that peak state of, I like what you're sharing. I might have somebody in mind to refer to you. And then, they do it. So then we remind them of the classes that are coming up so they can make sure they're on their calendar and they know what the topics are. We have the next 3 topics selected in advance. And that's been helpful to kind of pre-sell the next one. And then what else? It's like a success story. To give you an example, this workshop or masterclass that I did on Monday, one of the agents in the masterclass is kind of a newer agent to working with us. We'd previously closed a loan with her, and that's why she was there. She's a monster producer. Like, I know that she does a lot of volume. She, after the class, sent me an email and said, "Hey, I have 7 clients that like just are sitting still. Like they're exactly who you described. The lender that they were working with, I don't think's talked to them for months. You have my permission to reach out to these people and see exactly what we can do, and just kind of cross sell, see if we can get them moving forward." I mean, 7 referrals from one agent from doing one master class, and that was the first one she had attended. I feel like it was a pretty good outcome, you know. Plus, there were a lot of other things that happened from the people that were in the class. So this stuff works. It just, I think, takes consistency of doing it and just getting comfortable with building it into your marketing calendar.
Tremendous job, man. That's like 7 pitches slow and over the center of the plate that you got to swing at from one agent. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So how did you get her what prompted her to want to send you those 7 clients? Like what was the topic of that event and what did
Mhm.
you show her? I assume it was something to highlight your ability to move someone from frozen and sitting on the fence to anxious and ready to buy. But how did that work out?
Well, so what I was sharing is we personally in my office have, I don't know the exact number now, but I think it's like 193 or 194 pre-approved buyers that
Awesome.
haven't yet bought for over the last year. So, I mean, that's like
Yeah.
they're a recent group. And I'm frankly kind of pissed that they haven't bought yet. I'm trying to figure it out because I know those are clients I'm planning on serving and I need to get them moving. Like it's
Yeah.
really irritating. We've invested the time and effort to get them pre-approved and they haven't done anything. So I shared in the masterclass, here's some of the things we're doing and here's some of the success stories we've had. So, if you have a buyer who's sitting on the sidelines, that's the call to action in the masterclass. If you have a buyer that's sitting on the sidelines and your current lender's just not doing anything, let us come up and try to help out. And if they end up working with the other lender, that's fine. I just want to move them along for you. But if they want a second opinion, we absolutely would be open to doing that for them. And I think that's what I said that prompted
Great.
her to make that introduction.
And one of those things that you might be sharing with those clients is the cost of waiting that
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
mentioned
yeah.
earlier,
So
right?
yeah, yep. In those conversations, what I'm doing is, and this is a little non-traditional for us, so I'll just say it. I've moved to giving the option to just set up a 30-minute conversation, right? Just let's do some fact finding, figure out what you're wanting to do. I don't even know if like it's the right time for you yet. Let's get some more information,
No
and I can give
pressure.
you some ideas. Yep. And really trying to make it like as low risk as possible. And then in that 30-minute conversation, I talk with them for a good 15 minutes to get a good sense of what they've got going. And then I'll say, okay, well, based on what you're saying, I've actually had some conversations with clients that sounded really similar to this. Would you be cool with me sharing with you a couple things that I found really interesting, and those other clients found really interesting too? And they always say yes, because at that point they're like, they've been talking and they like me so much because they've been talking the whole time. Then I can share, the cost of waiting tool, with the inputs that they give me, because I have MBS Highway to do those inputs. And then I just say, what's standing in the way of you wanting to do this, right? Like you see the savings here that you would have, you see the opportunity that you can earn some equity here. Like what's getting in the way? And then at that point, we've got enough rapport where they're generally pretty raw and honest with me on what it is. And then we just deal with it, right? But it's been like really interesting moving that sales process around a little bit, because for me, like a credit pull might be a point in a certain scoring process you have, right? If you're like measuring credit pulls. But
Hmm.
I think conversations are so much more powerful, because ultimately, like you may not be great at it the first time you do this. Okay. Like I am horrible the first time I do anything, but the more situations I find myself in where I have the chance to kind of figure it out, the better I'm getting at it. And I think it's just very important that we all get really comfortable with having conversations with borrowers and trying to learn what their objections are. Because the reality is the worst thing could happen is they don't improve their thinking from when you started talking to them. I don't think you're going to worsen it.
I think what you're doing is brilliant. Yeah. Conversations equal closings, right? The more
Mhm.
connection we can create to those conversations, the more closings we're going to have. Okay. Love that. Let's go back to this kind of masterclass idea with the agent. So we're pre-planning them for 6 months out. It sounds like you've picked the topics 6 months out.
Yep.
You are inviting people and then you're opening it up, introducing yourself. You're giving a quick overview of how you're handling this challenge, whatever the topic is. You're opening it up then for collaboration, Q&A. How do I think a fear that somebody may have in throwing something like this is they give some insightful information on a relevant topic and then they open it up for Q&A or questions and it's crickets. So how do you get people to actually engage and create dialogue in that setting?
Well, if you can plant somebody, that's your best bet. And if you're
Ah,
inviting people, just do
idea.
that. Like that's such an easy thing to do. Anything else is gonna like feel kind of awful either way you look at it. And honestly, like that's okay. The thing I think of is, we've been a part of Tim's, 1 year coaching program, which is filled with awkward silences.
Yeah.
And you kind of get comfortable with it.
Yeah.
At first, it made me deeply uncomfortable, but I'm okay sitting for 60 seconds to let somebody talk. Like that, it really doesn't bother me anymore. And if I try to move too quickly off of an initial question, move to another one, I feel like I don't give people a chance to speak up. I think mostly people don't speak up because they're nervous. But the number one way to fix it, in my opinion, is stage somebody to be the person that asks a question. It might seem manipulative because it kind of is, but it works.
You
and
gotta
and
break the ice.
Yeah, if someone is willing to do it, I think you'll find that there will be 10 more people behind them that'll come up and talk. But sometimes you're not lucky enough to have a person naturally that will do that. And if you can't find a plant and you're just looking for advice on that question, I would ask a different question and maybe open with a vulnerable example. Anytime I can share a story where it makes me look not like the smartest person in the room, I think it gives other people permission to do the same. Um, and it makes me more human to the people that are, in the class, either in person or on Zoom.
Well,
So,
we know this from Tim Brahim's teachings, right? We're all involved in we're both involved in his signature program and now his master's program. And he says over and over again, your question is a gift because it may be on the mind of somebody else, or you ask the question that they'd forgotten. And then we start creating dialogue around that question. And it's a gift to everybody in the room. So just creating that reorientating the environment to where it's awkward to ask a question to you're actually gifting something to the rest of the people on the call with your question. I think that can give them permission. And then are you actually like texting? So if me and you are bros and I'm your realtor bro, are you
mhm.
texting me and being like, hey Josh, can I count on you to break the ice and ask a question? Are you like, what are you tactily doing to plant that person to break the ice?
So when I'm doing my calls before the
Ah,
meeting, I have a handful of people that are just, I've known forever, right? And when I'm confirming that they'll be there, I always know when they say they're going to be there, they're there. Those people, right? I say, hey, random question, but like sometimes these get awkward. When I ask a question, I'm looking for engagement. If one person answers it, it lets the air out of the tire and everybody feels comfortable. But sometimes it's like this battle of silence. Would you be up for being the person who kind of breaks the quiet and says something? And we just kind of get that, verbal contract ahead of the call, and it makes it
great.
easy.
So you're setting the
So,
stage before the call.
yeah.
So I'm guessing half the genius of these is A, you're engaging with this realtor group and bringing them value consistently, but B, you have a really great reason to call people. So talk a little bit about that and how just that aspect of having something to talk about when you call is advantageous.
What's the key? I mean, I don't know about you, but like I hate just randomly reaching out to agents. It feels awkward. I don't know what to say. Oftentimes I say too much about the wrong things if I don't have something to say. So knowing I have a reason to be reaching out, and whether it's before and inviting them, or after following up with them, I have something to tie it to. So I do events for that reason. Hey, I'm doing a realtor appreciation party at the end of the month. I wanted to invite you because I appreciate you. Right. And then when I invite them, for me, that's when I move to, okay, cool. How's life? Like, how you been? It's been a while since we've caught up. So that's when I pivot to like more of a personal conversation. It might be a limiting belief, right? Just calling it what it is, but I don't feel like it feels natural for me to reach out and be like, "Hey, so how's life been? How are the kids?" Like, for me, that doesn't feel like it's in my integrity. And honestly, people who know me really well would be like, "Dude, what the hell? Are you all right? I need to check on you." So it makes me feel more in what's natural to me. For other people, like it might be the opposite, and that's okay. Maybe this isn't the itch you got to scratch, right? I still think it's a good strategy, but it's not for the same reason.
I'm 100% with you because if I'm making that phone call, I feel like I'm offering them something to be a part, my personal guest to a mastermind that I'm going to
Mhm.
deliver value. That's me offering something versus asking for something, right? Like begging for a referral. Then
Mhm.
once I've offered, it's really easy to transition. There's that sense of reciprocity, really easy to transition into personal. And then perhaps we get to, hey, by the way, what's the next client we're going to get to work on? It feels a much more natural course to get there. So there's brilliance in that. Okay, action items. Let's close this thing out, Coach Tyler. What are the action items that our listeners should take if they want to set one of these up in the month ahead?
Well, I think the number one mistake I see loan originators make is they don't have a database of who they would call. And that's a pretty big issue, right? Like you need a list of people that you could, at the ready, pick up the phone and start calling and texting and emailing. So if you haven't organized your database, start with that. It's very simple. If you have a loan origination software, you can likely export the agent contacts tied to different loans that you've worked on.
Great.
So create that list. The information I would recommend having is first name, last name, their email and phone number. Beyond that, it's just bonus. If you can get their, activity of how much they do, that's helpful, but it's not necessary. Additionally, I think you pick a date, and you commit to the date and you start communicating it, right? For me, I do something as simple as just a spreadsheet with their names, and then I've got like is it a column? Is it column up and down?
Yeah, yeah.
Of invite, right? And I actually have multiple reach outs to invite. So I have multiple columns for each reach out. And then I have one column for RSVP, which is yes or no, because sometimes they say I can't make it. I don't want to keep inviting. And then I have a column that says add to calendar invite, because I run a Gmail calendar that I add them as an invitation. One tip on that: when you add a calendar, do not allow them to see each other and do not allow them to modify the event. Ask me how I know. But if you do that, then as you come up to the event, like for example, if it's a virtual event, you can do your updated communication just by simply sending an email to attendees, so that they're getting the email. It looks like a reminder of the calendar invite.
Right.
So they're always keeping it in track. But that's how I manage it, and that's also how I manage all my follow up afterwards. Once I run the event, either you or I have a teammate sit on kind of incognito that keeps attendance of who shows up, and I have them mark like who was on video, who wasn't on video, and maybe question marks if they're not 100% certain that it was the right person. And then I use that as the reach out prompt for when I reach out. So like if I'm not sure it was them, I'd say, hey, did I see you on that? I saw somebody with a similar name. Or, hey, I saw you. I didn't see you. I saw your name on there, So they see that I saw them there. And I think what I'm finding after doing a few of them, I think people like to be noticed that they were there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's kind of the actionable stuff. Hopefully that's helpful.
It's great. And I'll give the viewers one more tip that you gave me, which was you don't have to come up with the idea of what to talk about on your own. Remember, the back half of the story of this event is just having a reason to call. So you can call every realtor you've done a transaction with for the last year. You can call all your buddy realtors and you can just say, I'm thinking about having a mastermind. I want to know what is the problem or what is the challenge in the industry that if we mastermind and found solutions around, that would be interesting enough that you would want to come to this event. So even what's the event going to be at, you can recruit them to help kind of co-create the event. And it's another reason for a call. Okay, great. Now we're going to do the event. Reminder about the event. Great to see you at the event. Like there's 5 phone calls all around this one event. So that's just another little diamond that I wanted to share with folks that you taught me.
And one thing to add, so we did a master class on running an event inside the Atlas. It was one of the first master classes we did. So really as a member, you'll have access to that in the master classes. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's a lot of like swipe and adapt content from that if you want to take that.
Brilliant. Way to close us out. Thanks, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want more inside tips like this. Tyler, thanks so much, buddy.
Thanks for having me.